Calm, focus, happiness. Reach new heights of calm, focus, and happiness right here on Mindfulness Mode with me, your host and mindfulness life coach, Bruce Langford. I was just sitting here thinking about things and talking to my guest for a moment before the interview starts and telling her that I'm so impressed with anyone who is able to make the transition from living in a country so far away from us here in North America, making this transition, coming here, living in Canada, learning a new language, learning the new culture. And that is exactly what Natalya did. Now, not only did she do that, but she has been able to thrive and help people all over because Natalya Hramova is a health coach. She's a nurse. She's an entrepreneur. I mean, I am so impressed with her bio. She's been a professional musician and she was a journalist previous to the year 2000 when she did pack up and move from the Ukraine to a brand new life here in Canada. She's the author of multiple art-related articles and interviews, and her most recent work focuses on the human soul's struggle to survive, adapt, and thrive. And that's exactly what she's done. Transitioning to North American culture has not stopped Natalya from doing what she's always loved, and that's writing and also caring for people. So she's continued to write and care daily for patients in one of Canada's most prominent hospitals. And this is one of her favorite quotes, which I just love. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. And she truly is that. It's one of her favorite mottos. And as a mental health advocate, her compassionate care has touched the lives of, well, like I said, hundreds of patients struggling to survive. Natalya continues to be an inspiration to her followers across the world to be their best self while courageously facing adversity. So, Natalya, are you in mindfulness mode today?
Oh, I feel very peaceful. And
That
thank you so much for your kind words.
you're
I
most
feel
welcome.
peaceful and centered.
Oh, that's wonderful. I do too. And I've been looking forward to this day, looking forward to this opportunity to talk to you about mindfulness in your life and the many things that you've accomplished in your life. What does mindfulness mean to you, Natalya?
I discovered mindfulness maybe years 7 ago. And for me, it became a bridge to inner core of who I am. It became that wonderful road to my own value, feeling who I am deep inside, feeling sometimes lost peace inside of me, regaining it, collecting it so I can use it in my daily life. It's definitely has become alleviation from suffering and basically second meaning to my life. Because when I go into mindfulness mode, I feel that there is something much deeper inside of me, much greater than I could ever think and contemplate. And this greatness is present inside of my soul. So I would say that it's a road to something that is much greater than me. I find myself in mindfulness
Wow,
so
that is
that I
beautiful.
can live my full life mindfully.
Yeah. Wow, you are so well spoken. Your words are so carefully chosen and so meaningful. I want to go back to what you said, that this is inside of you, something much greater inside of your soul. What would you describe that as? Because I know that you grew up in the Ukraine and you did not grow up with a religious a religious life, a
Yeah.
religious basis. But this sounds very spiritual. This sounds very religious. How would you describe it?
To be very honest with you, I am very far from religion. I grew up in Soviet Union. We had churches closed, synagogues closed. Everything was basically closed. Only in far, far villages, people had access to churches and to priests, and they did it illegally sometimes. But I always was fascinated with the church and inside of church and feeling of greatness and peace inside of that structure. And I considered myself an atheist, but coming to Canada, going through the suffering of anxiety and panic attacks that I experienced for many, many, many years, brought me closer to thinking about universe. And I start feeling slowly with meditation that there is definitely a strength of something inside of me that I wasn't aware before. And I realized that my soul is something that coming from the universe. So I start believing and practicing that belief in the universe and the outer strength that exists outside of me and that has connection to me. And I realized that it's actually in my power to connect to that source. And I became a believer in universe. I don't practice any religion. If I were, I think it would be Buddhism, because I love the teachings, but I'm not really a practicing person for religion. I really admire people who are deeply into belief into particular entity, like Christians and Jewish people and Muslims and Buddhists, because to me, their life has stronger core, stronger center, and they have something to rely on in their daily struggles. Whereas for me, I had to find it for myself.
Right. Right. Very, very interesting. I want to go back to your life in the Ukraine, in the Soviet Union, as a journalist.
Yeah.
Paint a picture for us of a life, a day in your life back then.
Well, my journalist years actually were coexistent with perestroika. Have you ever heard about perestroika?
I have heard about it, but I would ask you to explain it a bit
Explain.
too,
Yeah, that
please.
was a collapse of Soviet Union
Okay.
and beginning of childbirth of Ukrainian democracy.
Right.
So we had so many discoveries about Stalinist years. We got access to literature that never was published. We got access to materials that were prohibited for decades. And it was mind-blowing to learn all this. And when I practiced journalism, it was already an independent Ukraine, beginning of an independent Ukraine. And my practice was around culture, because I graduated from Conservatory of Music. I studied history of art and music. And my focus was on concerts, theater performances, the people who created culture. So I took a lot of interviews. One of interviews that I'm very proud of was with Montserrat Caballé and Enrique Iglesias. Those are the stars that people can relate to. It was very interesting and very intense. And I was learning about these people and learning about myself as I was interviewing them. Amazing creative atmosphere in journalist world that really was wonderful. At the same time, couple times I was asked to write about politics. And honestly, I felt like I stepped in dirt.
Oh, wow.
And I realized that I am not gonna do that field.
Yeah.
Because it completely contradicts my internal values. At that moment, I understood that the way politics made is totally not my way of accepting life and people in life. So I decided to concentrate mostly on art, on culture. And, it was always a celebration when we had a chance to have a good interview or a good article. We would celebrate it with people who gave us interview, with our colleagues. Well, it was a lot of drinking because when you go to interview, you frequently take a bottle of cognac with you.
Okay. Uh-huh.
To build a rapport.
I see.
So it was interesting. It was, I would say that the life was on fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you enjoyed that life then?
I did enjoy it. But at the same time, I started feeling that it's not everything that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
I started feeling that there is something inside of me which is not completely utilized.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it was at that moment, and I figured it out only when I immigrated to Canada.
And why did you decide to immigrate to Canada?
Because my husband was offered a job here.
Okay.
As an engineer.
Uh-huh.
And that was a way out of dire situation, because in Ukraine, all the factories were closed at that moment. It was very, very devastating economically period. And he was a leading engineer at one of the factories, and he was without employment.
Okay.
And we lived on my salary, which was really hard. And we had a child at that moment who was 5 years old.
Uh-huh.
And we've decided to leave the country and try new life in Canada. Yeah, it was first spontaneous decision with a lot of excitement.
Mm-hmm.
When we came to Canada, the reality actually slapped us in the face, because
Right.
the job that he was offered no longer existed.
Oh, wow.
So we came to Canada, and he didn't speak English.
Yes.
Much. He studied it at school, but it was very, very beginner stage of English.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we had a 7-year-old child.
Mm-hmm.
I was the one who spoke English.
Right.
But all of us were without job and prospect of employment.
Right.
And we realized that what we did was kind of very brave.
Yes.
So we, like that, 2 frogs in the milk, one going to the bottom because cannot really move fast, and another one makes a cream by movement.
Right.
And swims or
Yes.
moves to the top. So
Yes.
we were the frog that tried to make a cream.
Yes.
I realized that I actually want to care for people. I always was very people-oriented person. I love people, communicating with people.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also always like medicine, probably because in my childhood years, my mom was always sick.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, she was always sick with a lot of ailments. And I was fascinated by the power of medicine. So I looked at my options and I realized that to study to be a doctor here, it's going to take me 9 years, whereas to be a nurse is going to take me just 4 years.
Right.
So I went to university, but in order to support ourselves, I also clean houses.
Okay. What university did you go to?
I went to a University of New Brunswick,
Mhm.
collaborated with Humber College.
Okay.
So I didn't have to travel to New Brunswick, but
Right.
I studied here for 4 years.
Yeah.
And first 2 years, I slept with dictionary instead of my husband.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to.
Wow. What an image that is, that you were just struggling day and night
Yeah,
to manage the language in order to get through. But you did. You graduated after 4 years and you became a nurse.
yeah, I graduated with honors.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. And even before I graduated, I was offered a position in 2 units. One is cardiovascular and one is multi-organ transplant. And multi-organ transplant was extremely exciting because it was relatively new
Mhm.
and very complex field of nursing and medicine. So I've chosen multi-organ transplant when you actually given a new life to people every single day.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. So how long did you do that work?
In multi-organ transplant, I stayed 6 years, studied as I went, took a course of acute care to take care of more acute patients. And then I realized that there is some stagnation happening to me.
Mhm.
And I realized it's time to look for new challenges. And I went to intensive care unit, studied again, and went to intensive care unit in University Health Network, Toronto General, which is considered to be one of the most acute ICUs in the country.
Wow. And how did you use mindfulness during this time as your time as a nurse working in the ICU?
So to tell you the truth, when I started ICU, I wasn't aware of mindfulness at that time. We had an amazing chaplain who actually introduced me to meditation. He just told me how to do that.
Mhm.
So when I start feeling very apprehensive toward numerous death experiences that I had in ICU, I started meditating. I started breathing through my pain of losing my patients and trying to find strength inside of me instead of despair.
Mhm.
Or I would say that I still felt despair, but I learned to accept it as a part of profession.
Right. And so you learn not to take this on. Is that right? You learn to not to take it on and not to take it home and so that it didn't become part of you. Is that true?
Yeah, I learned not to personalize it.
Yeah.
I would still take it home, but at home I would do the work,
Mhm.
meditation. My favorite was stillness meditation, when you lie down and just no music, no nothing, just you, your body, and your breathing.
Yeah.
And I would work through those issues with, gently accepting all the feelings, all the thoughts, and just breathing through them.
Now, one of the things you did is you practiced rebirthing. You did rebirthing with Dr. Orr. Would you tell us about that? What was that experience like?
Oh, yes, it was very intense and very eye-opening. When you do rebirthing, you practice so-called holotropic breathing.
Mm-hmm.
You breathe without pause in between breath, which puts you in a state of altered consciousness. Basically, you are in a state of trance.
Okay.
And when you go into that state, all the energy blocks that you have from repressed feelings, from pains that you encounter during your life, they activate. They activate, and with the help of very intense breathing, they become so intense that they reach the peak, and after that, they finally dissipate. So at the beginning, it wasn't a pleasant experience. It was very intense and scary because I was facing my fears as if I was in, let's say, as if I was in a panic attack mode, but
Okay.
breathing through them and knowing that they will dissipate, and I just have to stay with this state for a minute or two,
Mm-hmm.
help to get them out. And then in the process, the whole process goes approximately 2 hours.
I see.
In the process, you finally start feeling enormous sensation of relief,
Mm-hmm.
which is followed by lightness, vibration that so life affirming, so encouraging, so beautiful, that this intense and painful experience absolutely worth it.
I see. So what led you to that? Why did you decide to do that?
Well, my story is that I've experienced anxiety for many, many, many years. Since teenage years, I remember, maybe I was an anxious child, not aware of that, but since my teenage years, I remember being anxious and being afraid of life.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I did some very brave acts. So there were like two half of me. One was anxious and one was brave. And when I immigrated to Canada, anxiety became really bad. It would
Okay.
interfere with my daily life,
Mm-hmm.
and I would have extreme panic attacks that would last for days.
Oh, really?
Yes, not for hours, but for days.
Wow.
And I start searching for help, but help not with medications, but with internal help. I was trying to, I read a lot about different modalities, and Rebirthing was one of them that had very good reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's in states, it's contradictory.
Yes, I've read
Yeah,
that.
but I also heard about it in Ukraine, and I even wrote an article on it
Oh,
in
did you?
Ukraine. So I was informed. Yeah,
Right.
it was very informed choice. And I found one lady in Toronto. She was the only one who would provide sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to her, and after first session, I felt a relief. And then I did 10 other sessions, and I was like a new person.
How many years ago was that?
Oh, I would say maybe 15 years ago. Yeah.
I see. 15 years ago. So was that Dr. Orr then?
No, Dr. Orr is a founder.
Oh, is the founder of this.
He's a
Okay.
founder of method. I studied his methods
Okay.
when I wrote an article on rebirthing in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
But this lady, her name was Tamara Penn, and I recently searched her on the internet, and unfortunately, she's no longer with us.
Oh, I see. I see. And to this day, would you say it's helped you with anxiety?
Yes, but if you don't practice,
Oh, you have to
you
continue to
revert,
practice.
you revert to your old ways. But considering that rebirthing needs to be practiced with someone, and I have no one to practice it with, I change practice of rebirthing to meditation,
I
which
see.
helps a lot with anxiety.
So do you meditate every day?
I try my best. Some days I take breaks, and mostly I would say 6 days a week I meditate.
For how long?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. And that's silent meditation then, is it?
It's a silent meditation. And my favorite now is a different one.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, my favorite one is a walk-in meditation now.
Okay.
And I was asking myself, what's the reason for that? Why did I switch? And right now I'm working with spinal cord injury patients.
Right.
And majority of them are not able to walk. So I've learned to appreciate the power of walking, the power of my body to be able to walk. So I started doing walking meditation a year ago, and it's 20 minutes of uninterrupted, slow walk when I feel my body touching air, air touching my body, my feet touching the soil, and I feel support from the ground. It's a grounding experience, and the whole body coordinated and breathing coordinated with movement. It's a wonderful experience. It
Is it
wasn't
always outside? Do you always walk outside?
well, only on days when it's impossible, when it's rain, like heavy rain. If it's light rain, I still walk.
Yes.
If it's heavy rain, I don't want to hold umbrella, it distracts me.
Yeah.
So heavy rain, I don't walk, but for that, it needs to be the whole day of rain, because I would find moment when it's not raining and I would walk 20 minutes.
Right.
I take that time for myself, even if I am very, very busy.
Beautiful. That's great.
Yeah.
That sounds really great. Yeah. Wow. I want to ask you, Natalya, if you have a story about bullying where mindfulness would have made a difference, either when you were a child or as an adult, or do you have any kind of story that you can share with us in your
Oh, yes.
life okay, well, I'd love to hear it.
Well, I was bullied in school as a child. And then later, when I was a young adult and I was studying in Conservatory of Music,
Mm-hmm.
I was asked to join a choir by my friend, who was a conductor for that choir. And I enjoyed it very much because we were singing pieces from very, very talented Ukrainian composers. And some of them we were singing in the churches. And if you ever heard the choir in a church, you know how beautiful it sounds and how inspiring it can be.
I have, because I've been a music director in churches for many years. I'm not now, but I was for many years. Yes, go ahead.
So you know exactly what I'm
I
talking
do.
about. Yes, it's extremely inspirational experience. And I loved doing that. But when I started, I actually started noticing that some people in the choir kind of ignore me. They treated me with accentuated silence. And I wasn't sure what was going on. From time to time, they would pick on me and made some strange, inappropriate comments about me being there. Not about my performance, but about me actually be a part of that choir. So it was very, very strange, and I couldn't understand what was going on, but I didn't have a heart to confront them.
Mm-hmm.
After maybe several months of being a singer there, I was approached by the friend who actually invited me there, and I could see that he was distressed, but by what he was going to tell me, he asked me to leave. And when I asked what was the matter, excuse me, he said that approximately 40% of people in choir felt that it wasn't my place. Again, I demanded explanation. What was it about? About my performance, my punctuality? Because I knew I was good and there were no problems related to that. He actually blushed. He became all red and he said, "Natalia, I'm very sorry, but you are Jewish.
Oh my gosh.
And our choir is for Ukrainian singers." To say that I was devastated is to say nothing. I was shattered in pieces. I remember it was in the middle of the conservatory building. And I didn't say anything. I just turned and walked away. And then I went to a small room and I bawled my eyes there.
Yeah.
I cried and cried and cried. And this heavy feeling of not belonging, not being loved, I carried for several years with me.
Wow.
Because even at school, when I was bullied, I was never confrontational. I was searching and seeking approval, love, acceptance from so many people around me. And if I had the tool of mindfulness at that moment when I was kicked out of that choir, I would actually have a chance to go inside of me and search for that value, which I didn't feel at the moment. Value of myself, value of who I am. And, I believe that there is not a problem or challenge in this life that we cannot breathe through. Breathing can take us through pain, through challenges, through suffering. And if breathing was available to me at that moment, I am sure I would let it go much faster, much easier than I actually did.
Right. Wow. What a story. But you're not Jewish.
I am.
Oh, you are Jewish.
I am Ukrainian Jew.
I see.
My parents, my mom is Jewish, half Russian.
But you don't practice as a Jew, though. Is that right?
I am not practicing Judaism as religion.
But you were born Jewish, is what you
And
mean.
I was born Jewish.
And so
yes.
because of that, you were kicked out of the choir. You were
Exactly.
excluded.
Exactly.
How horrifying. Absolutely awful.
That was a little bit, that just a little bits of reality in Ukraine at that time. I forgave everybody for that. And there is a reason for those for those moments, because when something is very much forbidden for a long time, and Ukrainian culture suffered enormously
Hmm.
during Soviet Union, it was
Right.
russificated and basically suppressed. Then when Ukrainian people started becoming independent and regaining their identity, there were a lot of moments when they were not fair toward people who spoke Russian, people who were not Ukrainian. There were moments
Hmm.
which I experienced in my life, but I totally understand and accept the fact that there were reasons for that. I just happened to be a scapegoat.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but I totally forgave because they didn't know what they were doing.
No, no.
No,
And so that happened in the Ukraine before you came to North America, correct?
correct.
Yeah, I thought that's what you meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What a impactful story that is. Wow. Well, you have so much to share, and your coaching clients, I mean, are so fortunate because you have studied so much, you have so much life experience, and you're obviously able to help your coaching clients in ways that I could never even imagine. So they're very, very fortunate. And I know that you're on Facebook and Instagram, and that we can find you on those places under your name, Natalya Hramova, and Natalya, Natalya, Hramova, Hramova. And I will put links into our show notes, Mindful Tribe, so you can check that out at mindfulnessmode.com. But you've been featured in a book recently. This is interesting, Natalya. You've been featured in a book, and the book's about to be released soon. Tell us about this.
Oh, that's very exciting for me. Funny thing, so many people have a dream to write a book. I never had that dream.
Yeah.
Maybe because I wrote so many articles and interviews, and I thought, okay, I'm done with this chapter of my life, beside journaling, of course, which I love.
Yeah.
Um, I was approached by a director of publishing house and asked whether I would like to co-author a book with other authors about overcoming hardship and whether I have a story. And for a moment, I thought, do I really have a story? Because so many people immigrated. That's so common story here in North America. But then I realized that I do have a story with regards to my emotional wellness, how I overcame anxiety and extreme panic attacks when actually I had a moment in my life, which I have to be very honest about, when I was suicidal.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to overcome it. And I decided that I am going to share it exactly how it was. So maybe it will help somebody else. So maybe even one person who read it and get in touch with their problems and learn how to overcome it can actually benefit from my story. So I wrote a story, and it's a chapter in the book. The book is called Breakthrough Leadership with Natalya Hramova, and my story is called To Live is in Your Power. And there I talk about my experiences from school, my experiences with anxiety, which at the beginning were basically feeling like monsters inside of my spirit. I suffered from not knowing where it's coming from, what to do with it, and how to help myself. And I went through total unawareness to the acceptance moment. So I've learned that in order to heal, you first need to become aware of what you're actually healing.
Yes.
And the next step is actually acceptance. And it's one of the hardest steps because I was very good at pretending that I'm strong and confident.
Mm.
And many, many, many people would be absolutely surprised that I experienced anxiety because I always appeared very confident. So for me to accept the fact that I'm struggling with fear was a huge step because
Mm.
shame was part of my life.
Right.
When I learned to accept, that was a first step to healing process.
Wow.
So
Fascinating.
I did heal.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Incredible. And when does this book come out and how do we get a hold of it?
So the book will be published, I believe, by the end of November.
Mm-hmm.
The links to where to get the book will be on my Facebook page, on Linktree,
Okay.
on Instagram, on LinkedIn.
Okay. On
And I
LinkedIn.
will
Okay.
make a launch event for the book, and I will announce it to the world through my social media.
Sure.
So everybody who is interested can get their hands on it.
Sure. And like I said, I'll put those links in our show notes as well so that you can go to Linktree, and as soon as that link to the book is available, it will be there. So
Yeah.
that's very exciting. Now, as we move toward the end of the interview, I want to ask you, Natalya, 5 quick answer questions. So just 30-second answers are perfect. The first question is this: who is one person who has been an inspiration in your life when it comes to mindfulness?
John Kabat-Zinn.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's amazing. My second question, tell us, how has mindfulness affected your emotions or affected how you deal with your emotions?
I learned to be kind to myself.
Mm. Hence that quote that I mentioned
Yes.
in, yeah, at the beginning of the show. Yeah. You learn to be kind to yourself. You have this very, very kind heart. You're obviously kind to others, but being kind to yourself is the ultimate, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Now, you've talked about breathing already, but maybe you can sum it up. Tell us how breathing is a part of your mindfulness.
Breathing is a life force. It brings peace and energy. It centers you. It brings you to who you deeply are in your deepest core. So be with your breathing. Take it with you wherever you go and remember about its existence.
I'm looking forward, Natalya, to reading this book that you are featured in, this book that you are a co-author of, Breakthrough Leadership, with Natalya Hramova.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited to read this. But share with us, are there any other books that are related to mindfulness that you would recommend to our listeners?
Um, Well, I would say it's not directly about mindfulness, but I am a huge fan of Brené Brown.
Oh yes.
Everything by her is, it's a Bible for soul.
Yeah.
It actually teaches you to be mindful of your emotions, your struggles, your biggest inner fears and achievements. Recently, I reread The Gifts of Imperfections about vulnerability and how to be imperfect and how to accept these and live fully despite of being imperfect. So
Brene Brown is amazing.
she's my favorite.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Thanks for saying that. Any apps which you would recommend that can help with mindfulness?
Honestly, I am big fan of simply listening to music.
Okay.
Sometimes I do my meditation with music, and it's a very quiet, calm, relaxing pieces from Mozart, Bach, some of slow movements from Beethoven, mostly classic.
Yes. Yes. Well, Natalya, this has been such an incredible interview. I've really enjoyed every moment of hearing about your journey and having you share all this with us. And like I said, your coaching clients are very fortunate individuals because they're able to gain benefit from your rich experiences, your knowledge, your kindness, and you are such a fantastic listener as well. So, Mindful Tribe, if you're looking for a coach that you can relate to and you relate to Natalya, which I'm sure many of you do, reach out to her. Reach out to her on Instagram or on Facebook. And, I highly recommend Natalya's coaching, as well as just the fact that she is such a genuine, kind individual. So, Natalya, can you give us any final words of advice if anyone listening to this is experiencing anxiety, stress, some of the turmoil like you've experienced in your life? What would your words of advice be?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much, Bruce, for your kind words. I really appreciate that. It's very dear to me. And, when so many people experience anxiety today about challenges, uncertainty, and like whatever John Kabat-Zinn calls full catastrophe living,
Right.
I just want to encourage you to turn your look inward and go deep inside of who you are, who you meant to be, who you want to be. And the best what I can say is a quote from Albert Camus, one of my favorite authors, which says, "In the depths of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer."
Wow. Beautiful.
It's all inside of us. The answers are there. We just need to remember to search them there.
The answers are all inside of us. Thank you, Natalya, so much for being a guest on Mindfulness Mode.
You're very welcome, and thank you. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Bye now.
Bye.